Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. We also run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions, but that's later in the show. For now, let's run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. By the way, my birthday. Don't know if we've ever done a show on my birthday before. Probably not, but I just wanted to, just throw that one out there. And unfortunately, the Dolphins have to take this L on my birthday. It doesn't matter. Anyway, Jim Caldwell back to full health. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. Really, there's nothing to this new story other than he's back to full health. It says in this report that Jim Caldwell has, fully supports Brian Flores. Will he come back next year? Hopefully, it would be stupid if the Dolphins, didn't want him to come back next season because of the fact that we are trying to get the quarterback of the future. He has one of the better track records in the league with quarterbacks, and not just some there's a lot of coaches in the league that people, that guy, he's a quarterback guru. Caldwell is actually someone who works well with quarterbacks that are on the downside. Adam Gase got famous for his work with Peyton Manning. His Jay Cutler work is not as impressive as people make it out to seem. And we see what Ryan Tannehill is doing down in Tennessee with a good roster. Had nothing to do with Adam Gase. So Jim Caldwell is legit. He worked with Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco is not a Hall of Fame quarterback, and he played his best. I mean, that's the reason he got the $100 million contract was because of Jim Caldwell. And then when Jim Caldwell left, it was never the same. Jim's worked with Peyton Manning. He's worked with a lot of really good, Matthew Stafford. He had a really good tenure there where, they won 11 games one year. They won 11-5. Stafford was kind of in that spread offense, and that's where he thrived the best. That's where he had all those crazy comebacks that season. They had that great defense that they should have beat Dallas in the playoff game. They never did. So Jim Caldwell has a lot of experience. He brings a lot of wisdom to the franchise and what the franchise needs to do to get back on the winning track. Again, this is a coach that's above 500, well above 500, and knows what the heck he's doing. So it's good that he's back to full health. Hopefully the Dolphins get him back and he doesn't leave us for another opportunity, because we need him, especially for where the state of the franchise is right now, searching for their future quarterback. He would be a big plus to have. This next news story brings some warmth to my heart, ladies and gentlemen. Dolphins, and again, this comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins signed DeVante Parker to an extension. Months after DeVante Parker agreed to a contract through the 2020 season, the Dolphins and their top receiver are close to on a deal that would keep Parker in Miami through 2023. I said 2020 twice. The deal is worth more than $40 million. Excuse me. Tom Pelissero of NFL.com reports, adding that the agreement is believed to be high on guarantees that would seemingly be necessary in order to convince Parker not to bet on himself in 2021 free agency. This contract will include $8 million in signing bonus. Who cares? DeVante Parker is 26 years old. This season he has caught 55 passes for a career high 882 yards and 6 touchdowns. He's been perhaps the top bright spot on a rebuilding Dolphins team. That comes after years with the 2015 being a first-round pick in 2015 and being a little bit disappointing. In terms of Dolphins extensions this season with this regime has extended so far Eric Rowe, Allen Hurns, and DeVante Parker. Okay, so what do I think about this? I'm very happy with. Listen, I was wrong. On this podcast, I have defended DeVante Parker for years, but this year was the last straw for me. I was like, okay, we've seen enough. It's time to move on. And I didn't even want him to come back for this season. I was like, we've seen enough. I don't want to hear about DeVante Parker anymore. I don't want to hear about how he's almost something. And this season, he's put it all together. And he's had a great year. He's very consistent. Makes a big play every game. Affects the game every game. It's unfortunate that the team around him isn't, as consistent or as talented. But I'm happy that the Dolphins did this because, I don't know, I felt like maybe this would be one of those situations where the Dolphins miss out or don't extend him, and he goes to be productive elsewhere. And we've seen a lot of that happen over the years. And I feel like the thing that makes me comfortable with this extension is because of his consistency this year. He's been very consistent, and it's a good thing, man. You got Preston Williams on the docket. You got DeVante Parker. That's going to be one heck of a duo for years to come. Those are two true dominant outside threats that this team hasn't had in a very long time. And they both have a lot of potential. And to keep them together and to lock DP down was very smart. And we're not paying him that much. I think he gets paid less than Alshon Jeffrey does, which is like 12 or 13. Like Alshon's like the 12th highest paid receiver in the league. So he's not getting paid a bunch of money. He's getting paid what he deserves, and I think this was a great move by the Dolphins. Just all around a great deal for everybody, and I'm very, very happy with the deal. And I look forward for DeVante Parker and whoever the heck the next franchise quarterback is, hopefully, whether it's Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, throwing many touchdowns to Preston Williams and DeVante Parker for many moons to come. And, again, I think this is, just an all-around good move by the Dolphins. I'm very happy with it. This is the last news story? Yeah, this is the last news story, ladies and gentlemen. Dolphins waive special teamer Marques Valdes. Who cares? Marques Valdes wasn't that great for us. What does it matter? So let's move on to the box score, ladies and gentlemen, before we get into the fan Q&A. There was not a lot of news to talk about. Now, the Dolphins fall to the New York Giants. Back-to-back games in MetLife Stadium, they fall both times. First time shouldn't have lost. This time they deserve to lose. They lose in a blowout, which is the most disappointing thing about this game. 20-36. The Dolphins got utterly smashed in the second half, where they were up at half 10-7. Mind you, they were up 10-7 at half and somehow lose 36-20 to a very bad Giants team. We'll start with the offense, because the offense was just up and down all day. Ryan Fitzpatrick finished the day 23 of 41 passing, 279 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Patrick Laird, who has been promising over the last few weeks, had a very disappointing game. He finished the game with 12 carries for 46 yards. Myles Gaskin, close second, with 9 carries for 43 yards. DeVante Parker led the team in receiving once again with 4 receptions and 72 yards and 2 scores. And second in receiving was Albert Wilson with 5 receptions for 59 yards. And we had a pretty good game by Mike Gesicki, 4 catches for 47 yards. He could have had more opportunities. Unfortunately, just some bad reads and just, I don't know. He just didn't see him, I guess. So let's talk about the offense. We'll start with Ryan Fitzpatrick, I guess. You know, he had a good game in the first half, but even in the first half, I felt like he missed some throws or he missed some reads that he, probably should have made. But all in all, I didn't think it was a terrible performance by him. He missed a pass to Patrick Laird that would have moved the chains on third down. He kind of overthrew him in the second half. His accuracy has been very inconsistent the last 2 weeks. Very inconsistent, which is weird. I don't understand. Maybe it's the cold weather. I really don't get it. But he does not throw well in MetLife Stadium. This is the worst I've seen him throw in all year. The 2 games in MetLife Stadium. Because before he played bad, they were just bad decisions. I don't know what's going on with his arm. But his accuracy is very inconsistent. And that hurt us a couple times in this game. The offensive line didn't play terrible in pass protection, especially in the first half. The second half, our blitz pickups were just not very good, and we just couldn't get in good down and distance. I really don't blame it on the offensive line that much. They didn't do bad enough for us to lose 36-20. That's for sure. Were they great in the run game? No, but they haven't been all day or all year. The receivers were good. I didn't think they were bad. Mike Gesicki had a good game. The running backs were disappointing. Myles Gaskin had a couple nice carries, and so did Patrick. But he dropped some balls, and he had the bad play in the end zone where he just wasn't able to shake the cornerback. And if he would have made him miss, that would have been it would have been at least a 15-yard gain, because that was the only guy out there on outside contain, and he just made the play, and Patrick couldn't shake him. And again, I think that's a great example of, hey, that is a snapshot of the Dolphins in need of a running back, because if you're an NFL running back, you have to make that guy miss. That's just, that's just how it is. You got to make him miss. He wasn't able to do that. It looked like an undrafted rookie and just got tackled in the end zone for the safety, which was to me the turning point of the game. We just really couldn't do it. We just were a different team after that. I don't know why. The Giants were just able to pretty much run the ball at us, and I'm pretty sure that was right after a turnover, if I'm not mistaken. Or we just got to stop on third down. And they punted the ball. They kind of pinned us down, and we just weren't the same after that. And I think we had the lead at that point, and then we lost it after that. Yeah, I think we did. Or maybe it was close game, or it was like a 1-point game. But we just never could get back in the game after that. And for some other notes, I thought the play calling was really bad this game. The consistency of what the team was trying to do was all over the place. I felt like there was a lot of times where, the 4th and 1 that we got stopped on, I thought that was just bad. If you're going to go for it on 4th down, you got to understand this team just cannot run the ball. I mean, we're one of the worst running teams in the history of the league. And I've talked about this before, but you have to recognize your personnel and what they do well. And that's one of the reasons I like this coaching staff, is I think they have done, especially on defense, done a very good job of that. And I felt like that was just poor, kind of going back on what you preach a little bit right there. And I thought that was a terrible play call of running right at the middle of the Giants' defense. I thought that was just stupid. And there was a few plays in this game where it's like, why are we running here? Stay in the shotgun. That's when we've had our most success this season, and we've had a lot of success with it in the first half. We just weren't able to finish. So I thought the play calling was all over the place and wasn't consistent enough. I don't really know what the game plan on offense was going into this game. We had a couple of good runs, but I felt like in crucial situations, we relied on it too much and it hurt us, like that 4th and 1 play. And there were a couple second downs where I would have taken some of those run plays back where I wish we would have passed the ball. So, I felt like, again, I just felt like the play calling wasn't consistent enough. I just didn't feel like there was a game plan going into this game. Or a solid one or a consistent one. Like, okay, this is what we're going to try to do against this defense. This is what they can't do very well. And they've been a very bad pass defense all year, and we're actually a pretty good to decent passing offense, especially with DeVante Parker on the field. And we didn't take a good enough advantage of that in this game, I felt like. And we weren't consistent enough with it. I felt like we should have done it a lot more early on in this game, in those crucial situations to finish drives, and there were just too many times where we got tackled for loss, or we got no gain, and it was 3rd and long, stuff like that, and you just can't live in those situations. I just felt like the play calling was just all over the place on offense. That's basically disappointing, especially going up against a Giants team that's just awful, like awful. I expected a little bit more out of the plan there, and it was very disappointing, in my opinion. Just not a good coaching job on the offense side of the football for this game. Defensively, Eli Manning had a terrible game and still somehow won. He threw 2 touchdowns and 3 picks. One was at halftime, but we really just didn't do a good enough job of capitalizing off these turnovers. Again, we just can't finish opportunities. We just cannot take advantage of them. Saquon Barkley was the reason they won the game. He was able to control the game and the pace of the game. He had 24 carries with 112 yards. He had almost 5 yards a carry with 2 scores. Receiving-wise, Sterling Shepard really hurt us over play action and over the middle. We had a hard time defending that. He had 9 receptions with 111 yards. Same thing with Golden Tate, who kind of got lucky on one catch that ended up being a touchdown. On defensively, I really don't... the plan was good. We did a really good job on defense, especially on crucial situations. I felt like we did a good job of coaching, and the players were in the right position to make plays. It was either the team was unlucky or just we weren't talented enough to get the job done. But the plan was good. I thought they were really well coached in this game. But we just, again, it's the same old song that I've been talking about all season long. The edges of this defense are terrible. The pass rush is abysmal. The run defense is not there. It's just we can't protect the edge. Interior defensive, in terms of run defense, is very inconsistent. Excuse me. And that hurts us in both parts of defense. Teams getting a lot of 3rd and shorts on us. and our secondary isn't that great. And when we do get teams in third and long or off play action, when we have things covered, they still have a ton of time. Like the goal line touchdown pass, that's a perfect example of it. The play action pass on 4th and 1 where Jerome Baker got that pick, Eli Manning could have stood there for another 3 or 4 seconds and been fine. Like, he didn't have pressure. He just threw a terrible, terrible, terrible pass. In my opinion, if this team wants to consistently win with the formula that they want to build in this franchise, they need better defensive linemen. They need to nail that in the offseason, because 90% of turnovers, in my opinion, are caused by pressure. 90% of them. The other 10% is just bad decisions by the offense, or fumbles, or, fluke plays, we'll call them. But 90% of it is pressure. You have to have a good defensive line. Not only does it set teams back in terms of down and distance, but on play action passes, when you're backed up on your own goal line, stuff like that. It creates opportunities for your back end to make big plays in the game that change the game. And this coaching staff is extremely smart. They put their players in the right position to make plays. I'm very excited to see what this defense looks like with playmakers on it, because I have a lot of confidence on that side of the ball with what they're doing on that side of the ball and how this team performs in terms of there's not a lot of busted coverages with these players in the secondary. And they're well coached, you can tell that. And it's just a talent thing with this defense right now. And the defensive line is one of the worst I've seen in NFL history, I feel. There's too many. And you got to understand, this offensive line that we went against is a very bad one. It is not a good offensive line. They've been very bad all year. Saquon Barkley has looked bad because of it. And we weren't able to take advantage of that. So think about that for a second. That's how bad this defensive line is. It made them look like the Dallas Cowboys. It just was bad. The best pass rusher, in my opinion, the entire game was Sam McGuavin. I felt like he got the most pressures. He did a good job anytime he was sent after the quarterback, taking on guards and just either running them over or doing nice little move with his hands, whatever it was. He did a good job. Or pushing them back into the quarterback. He was the best pass rusher all day. This Dolphins team needs help bad on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the trenches. That's where they need to focus, is the trenches this offseason. And they need to put all their resources into it, because the defensive line needs across the entire board needs a new player there at every single position. Because what they have right now is not a good long-term solution. It's not going to lead to more wins, and they need to fix it because it's bad. Christian Wilkins, listen, it ain't looking good. Let's just put it that way. He's had little glimpses of development, and hopefully he can make this huge jump from year 1 to year 2. But I feel like his ceiling is going to be a good defensive tackle. I don't think he's going to be Geno Atkins or John Reed or Aaron Donald or Chris Jones, some of the really good interior linemen that I just don't see it from him right now, and he's been very disappointing. It's a big issue right now, and they need to figure it out in this offseason. Because like I said, I'm very excited to see what this defense would be with talent on it, because I think it would be very special, and I think that's an exciting thing to look forward to. So again, a very disappointing day by the Dolphins, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And just overall as a team, I felt like they would play better. They just could never get back in the game in the second half. And it's unfortunate. Our quarterback looked like a warm weather quarterback throwing in a cold weather environment. He really did. His consistency with his accuracy. I mean, that Patrick Laird throw is a perfect example of just put it on him and he'll get the first down. Or get very close to it. And it just wasn't able, we just weren't able to take advantage of that. Also feel that we weren't as aggressive in this game as we were before. There was a couple 4th downs where I felt like, we're going to go for it. We were at midfield, and we didn't. And I thought that was very weird. And, I don't know. I felt like we should have been more aggressive in those situations. Because what the heck are we playing for? Nothing. We're playing to win this particular game. That's what we're playing for. I just felt like we could have been a little bit more aggressive in those situations. So, again, it is what it is, dude. It's very disappointing. it was a very frustrating game to watch, just because like this team it has more talent on it, that's for sure. But the Giants, but I felt like we could beat them, and to get beat like that, especially in the second half where we just got ran out of the stadium, was very disappointing. And especially since the defense did its job in certain, like it did. Hey, let's take advantage of the game. Let's take this game over, and it was there, and the offense just couldn't answer the call, and they haven't been able to finish drives the last 2 weeks. They've been very bad at it. And before these 2 games, they were very good in the red zone. Whatever, I don't know. Maybe I hope it's just the MetLife Stadium is not good to Ryan Fitzpatrick. I hope that's what it is. All right. Let's move on, ladies and gentlemen, to the fan Q&A. Because I feel like there wasn't a lot of news to talk about, and yeah, we just move on to the fan Q&A because we got nothing. There's no more news to talk about. This first question comes from Alonzo. Alonzo says, "Do you believe?" Again, this is a fan Q. I don't know why I had to say it again. You know, I don't get it. Saying 2024 different times. Sometimes, I wonder. I really wonder. I might be losing it, ladies and gentlemen. We don't know. But anyway, this first question comes from Alonzo. Alonzo asks and or says, don't know which one is appropriate to say sometimes, and I say both. Do you believe the hate the Finns have been receiving from local media is justified? I know that they are trying to sell papers and get clicks. Where's the objectivity, or am I off? Are you talking about, it's very weird. I feel, well, you got to understand, the people that have covered this team for 20,000 years, they're like, they're sick and tired of it, and they're very cynical because of it. They've just been beat down, and I get it. I understand it, and I get it. But you definitely can't argue with the facts. The facts are this team's terrible in terms of talent, and it was done on purpose by our front office, and the coaches have done a really good job with what they've been given. So they can say what all they want, but there's at least that. This, to me, was their worst game they've had so far. This game was their worst game that they've coached by far so far. And, a lot of especially on the defensive side of the ball, a lot of that had to do with just not being able to, penetrate enough on defense and make plays on the defensive line. But, I think that's the reason, is just because of, especially the last few years under Stephen Ross, and we'll just look at the Stephen Ross era. It's been very, very bad, and the endings to a lot of these regimes have been very, very bad. Like, awful, awful, awful endings. To the best one, in my opinion, was probably the end of Tony Sperano's year when Todd Bowles took over, and I think, was it 2011, and we went on that win streak, and then we won our last game against the Jets. Like, that was the best ending to any of these regimes. The Joe Philbin one was sucked. With Dan Campbell, we went 6-10, and it was just bad. We did win against New England at the end of the year, though. But that whole situation was terrible with Joe Philbin, and the ending with Adam Gase was probably the worst of them all. It was that stretch of games that we lost towards the end of that season were awful. But it's been bad. It's just been bad, and I don't blame the people that have covered this team for being very skeptical. But I think the facts are the facts. And I know they're tired of hearing excuses, but they're the facts. I mean, the front office tore this roster down on purpose, and the coaching staff has done a good job with what they've had. And I don't understand why there's not a lot of optimism and credit due to that. And it's unfortunate that they don't get that. This next question comes from Douglas. Douglas says and or asks, "Hey Skaggs, after today's loss and the Giants winning their third game, where will we be picking on draft day? The Giants and Redskins also play again, so in all likelihood, we should move up a spot unless we beat the Bengals next week. I'm hoping for the D from Ohio State, Young or Tua. What do you think?" Yeah, I mean, that sounds right, what all you said right there. If the Giants and Redskins play again, in all likelihood, we should move up a spot because we lost to both of those teams, and one of them has to win that game. So that makes sense. Uh, the D. Oh, you meant D end. I said D. From Ohio State. Yeah, I would love Chase Young. And the funny thing is, the Dolphins have a chance to get both of those guys. There's a chance, and if they somehow pull that off, dude, oh my God, there's no way we're gonna get the number 1 pick. So I don't think we're gonna get Chase Young. But if somehow the Dolphins do get the number 1 pick, there's a really good chance they could get Tua and Chase Young, which would be crazy in that scenario. So yeah, I would love both of those guys, or either one of them. This next question comes from Josh. Josh says, Skaggs, I believe Albert Wilson can be a great wide receiver for us when healthy. Not our number 1 receiver, but still a solid receiver. Would you keep him? Yes, he's starting to get more healthy. He's a good slot receiver, and I think he continues to trend in the right direction. It's just the offensive line and the running backs are just so bad that it holds the talent in some. Again, I think it bleeds through still. But again, the offensive line is not good on either of the running backs, and I think they suffer because of that. This next question comes from Josh. Josh says, Skaggs, if you were Chase Young, do you stay at Ohio State for the senior year, or would you declare for the NFL draft? I would declare for the NFL draft. It's going to be very hard to replicate what you've done this year, and you want to get that money. So I would declare for the draft. This question comes from Josh. Josh has opinions on Fitz being our team's leading rusher. Does this mean we should consider taking a running back in the draft, maybe in the later rounds? Doesn't mean we should consider. Yes, we should do it. We need to do it. Whether it's a free agency or the draft, the Dolphins need to address that position because it's very bad. This next question comes from Douglas. Douglas says, Hey Skaggs, any thoughts on playing Rosen in the last 2 weeks? I think he stinks and has zero future with us. If Fitzpatrick balls out and we beat Cincinnati next week, we could possibly move back 3 or 4 spots on the draft board. This would cost us a lot of draft capital, and to move back up to get Tua or Chase, the season is pretty much over and our future is around the corner. What do you think? That argument is the best argument you can make for anything. I want the Dolphins to win because I'm a crazy person and I'm insane and I just can't root for them to lose. I just can't do that. And I think regardless of what happens, the Dolphins are going to get their quarterback. Now, can they get both of Chase Young and their quarterback? No, they can't do that. But they're going to get their quarterback no matter what. And I think what happens down the stretch, if you're worried about getting a quarterback, I think that's inconsequential. I think whatever happens again, wherever the Dolphins are on draft day, and again, whatever happens the last 2 games, which in all likelihood the Dolphins are going to go 1-1, because they play the Patriots and Bengals the last 2 weeks. But wherever they land, they're going to be able. They can trade up they have so much ammunition to use that they can do whatever the heck they want. So, and again, there's only one team that needs a quarterback, and that's the Bengals, and they still might take Chase Young. So, they're going to get one of the two, Joe Burrow or Tua Tagovailoa. This next question comes from Alonzo. Alonzo says, who is the heir apparent to the Patriots in the division? Is it us or the Bills? Excuse me, hang on, I got it. The Bills seem to have good talent and really good coaching. What do you think? Yeah, the Bills are the biggest competition the Dolphins would face to be the heir. The Jets are a mess of a division. They don't have a good structure there, or division. The mess of an organization. Their structure is very poor, with their leadership and stuff. So it's definitely the Bills. And I have to give a credit where credit is due. Josh Allen. His style of play is very much like a Cam Newton, except he's even worse at throwing than Cam Newton. Like when Josh Allen has a 400-yard pass game, pigs might fly because Cam did that in his first 2 games of his career. Like I don't think Josh Allen is capable of that, but he is a very good. He's Cam Newton with that. He's just a lesser, in my opinion, with a lesser accuracy threshold, if that makes sense. But again, I got to give credit where credit is due. I think the best thing about that team is their head coach. Sean McDermott is a very good head coach. The best thing he does is game plan, especially on defense, and that shows week to week. And Even when he didn't have a talented defense, that defense was trending in the right direction. So, yes, the Bills are a very formidable opponent, and they're going to be one for years to come for those reasons. They have a good quarterback, and they've got a really good head coach that knows what the heck he's doing in terms of game planning. So, yeah, it's the Bills. And I hate to say that, but we have to still see what the Dolphins do this offseason. I still think that the Dolphins have the second best coaching staff in the as a whole in this division. I really do believe that, and I'm very. It's all depending on what the heck they do with their roster decisions. Because if they nail it, then the Dolphins are going to enjoy a lot of success. But if they have to nail it, dude. They have to, dude. And we'll see what they do. This next question comes from Alonzo. Alonzo says, I didn't see the same passion from the Finns this week compared to last week. Nor did Fitz target Parker as much as he could have all game. Did you notice the same thing? Yeah, I also noticed Fitz was off. Like with his passion. Which is weird. I did notice the same thing. Especially in the second half. It was very lackadaisical. When we lost control of the game and we weren't in it anymore, like when we were down 10, the game was over. Like they just didn't have it anymore. And which is unfortunate. I don't know if it was because they had so many opportunities and they still couldn't take advantage of them. Maybe that's what took the air out of them. But I don't know. Maybe they just want to get the heck out of New York. I have no idea. They just didn't. Yeah, they didn't look like they had the same energy, especially in that second half. This next question comes from Mark Jefferson. Mark Jefferson says, do you agree quarterback/O-line and running back are priority? Should we give up a couple of picks to get Burrow? If not him or Tua, who would you draft at quarterback? It's a great question, and it's a very difficult question to answer because, for years now, I've loved Tua, and I think he's... See, this is a tough question for me to answer. I would still pick Tua. If it were me, I would pick Tua. The only thing that I would hesitate about is the injury history, but I'd still pull the trigger. And especially if somehow I was able to... If I knew that I could get both of them, Chase Young and Tua, I would, and I would still pick Jordan Love in later rounds, too. That's probably what my mindset would be, is if we can somehow get both of these guys, and if we end up with Joe Burrow, fine. That's fine with me. It's not fine. It's still really a good thing, but that would be my draft strategy. If going into it, if we can somehow get both, that would be the goal. Plan B would be to get Tua. Whatever the heck we do with the next 2 first-round picks, if we have to trade back up into the second round, and we might not have to, and pick Jordan Love, I would invest in the quarterbacks in this draft. And that might sound a little crazy. Oh, maybe it doesn't sound crazy, but that's kind of what would be on my mind in the draft. This next question comes from Richard. Richard says, I hope the Dolphins don't waste one of their high picks on Tua. They need help at pass rusher, center, defensive back, running back. The Dolphins should draft Tua in the supplemental draft in July. That is some... Dude, first of all, I don't know. If you don't like Tua, that's totally fine. But you cannot not take a quarterback. You have to take one. So, you just got to pick which one you like. Whether that's Jordan Love in the later rounds or that's Joe Burrow. This next question comes from Richard to end the show. He says, Dolphins should give Josh Rosen some reps. I think the Dolphins wasted a second-round pick. What's Rosen's future with the team going forward? You make a great point that, hey, what the heck? We could have had Chase Winovich, for God's sakes, with that pick. And that would have helped this team a lot this year. But, I don't... Was it a waste? No, because at least you tried. You're like, oh, we need to find a franchise quarterback, and you took a chance. And so far, it seems to have not worked out. What holds cards the future, whatever the heck the saying is, we'll have to see. But I'm hesitant to call it a failure just yet. We still have to see what happens in the future. Because I still do believe Josh Rosen has talent, and I still do believe that he has an opportunity to become something really good. And the weird thing is that, Omar Kelly, they do the Omar and Dave show on Sun Sentinel, and it's a very good show if you're a Dolphins fan. Very similar to this show, but with a little bit more production. But what was I? Okay, yeah. So Omar, a very cynical Dolphins fan, was like, I think Josh Rosen, and this is the first time I've heard him say it because he's been a Josh Rosen hater since he got into the league, and he said, I think Josh Rosen will become something one day, but he doesn't think it's going to be anytime soon, whether it's this year or next year or the year after that. I still think that the stuff that I've seen from him, and it's not been consistent, is special, and he still has something there to develop, and I think the Dolphins should keep him around just in case something happens. You never know. He could become consistently good, and if he can, then he's a franchise quarterback, but he just hasn't been able to do that, and hopefully he can do that. And there have been some rumors that I heard on the Omar and Dave show that Omar said that he's heard from coaches that he just doesn't love it enough. He's heard, not coaches, but from, I guess he said people around the building, whatever that means. So if that's true, that's unfortunate. And the Dolphins did waste the pick, and they didn't waste it, but they took and it just didn't work. You keep firing, dude. It's a 50-50 thing in the NFL draft. You're gonna miss some, and you're gonna hit some, and they didn't hit it. That's fine. I'm glad they took the chance. It's not a waste. Got all these draft picks. Kill the pass if you have to. If people get that reference, if they get it. You just got to move on, and I think that's what the Dolphins are. They have a good opportunity to do this offseason. But yeah, that's what I think about Josh Rosen in that whole situation. I think it's too early to say it was a failure just yet, because he still has it in him to be that really good pocket passer and a great quarterback, but he just can't do it on a consistent basis, and we'll see what happens with him, because if this team gets talented and the offensive line, defensive line improve, and if he improves himself, there's a chance he can be special. But we'll have to see. There's a lot of things that are question marks that aren't that we're gonna have to wait, and we'll see what happens. But this was and my final thoughts on this, and the here and now, this was a very disappointing performance by this team, and defensively, I thought the coaching job was really good, and I just felt like the offensive game plan was way too inconsistent, and I don't think we had a concrete idea of what we wanted to do, and I think it showed in this game. So, this was probably the worst coaching job I've seen from, and again, it wasn't the defense. It was just I'm trying to be very specific when I say this. It was the offense. But yeah, this was the worst coaching job I've seen from the Flores era so far. Anyway, I'm Skyxter83, and I'll see you guys in the next one.